Hi everyone, and thanks for joining me back. We will start this lesson by creating this scene. We will do a little repetition of the previous lesson and use the track matte settings. But first, let's learn how to create the shape of the iPhone. First of all, let's turn off all the layers that won't bother us. And now we'll take the rectangle tool and create a square while holding the Shift key so that the square becomes symmetrical. It is very important to make the shape symmetrical before changing its dimensions to other specific dimensions. I found the dimensions of the iPhone 14 on Google, and what is important to us here are these numbers: 160.7 in height and 77.58 in width. In our case, it doesn't really matter whether it is centimeters, millimeters, or pixels. So now, let's change the dimensions of the square we created. What is important to remember is that we do not change the scale of the layer itself. I will explain. Remember that we learned about the shapes. I explained that the shape type layer has transformers of the layer itself, and there are also transforms of the rectangle inside the content in this shape layer. Now I want to show you that the shape also has the dimensions of that shape's path. The path of this shape can be found here, and this is exactly what we need to change if we want to enter specific data. I will close these two. And so that the wigs don't transform together, we have to open the chain so we can change each wig differently. So in height, we will change to 160.7, and in width, 77.58. And now we have created the iPhone. To scale it, we can now click here to maintain the ratio of the two wigs and scale the iPhone, no matter which wig. All that remains to be done now is to round the corners. We can do this with the roundness parameter. I think 70 looks fine. Maybe 80. We'll close the parameters and change the layer's name to iPhone Screen. One last thing, let's tag this layer with any color to differentiate it from the other layers. And now, let's create the iPhone animation. Let's turn on the pre-comp of the video, and place the layer of the iPhone next to the video that was convenient for us to work with. And now, let's find the point in time when we want the iPhone to enter the frame. Let's say it will happen in the second 6. We can change the timing later. Now, notice that we are still on the rectangle tool. Let's go back to the selection tool and start the animation of the iPhone. Turn on this layer and turn off the video layer. Let's move forward to the second 8. And as I mentioned earlier, we do not animate the scale parameter through the transforms of the layer, because if I animate it from here, the shape of the iPhone will be destroyed. Look what's happening here on the sides. The same thing will happen if I animate the scale parameter through the transform of the rectangle itself. What we will animate is the path of this shape. In this way, the design of the shape is preserved. Alright, so let's cancel the proportion constraint, and tell the iPhone that at this point in time, you're going to be this size. And before that, we want you to be this size. And now the iPhone will shrink in this way. Let's see how it looks. I think it's very slow. Let's speed up this animation. Take the final keyframe and drag it to the second number 7. Let's see what it looks like. Now we'll improve the animation with easy ease. Alt double-click, and velocity 85 by 85. Let's see how it looks. Let's close the layer and connect it to the pre-comp of the video. So I want the video to use the iPhone screen as the alpha. That's why I'll drag the pick whip of the video into the iPhone layer. The iPhone is constantly in its large in size, and therefore we do see the video, because the video is within the limits of the iPhone's shape. And this is how it looks when the iPhone starts to shrink. Now you can adjust the timing between the animation of the iPhone. Press U on this layer to see its keyframes. We will move the keyframes in the timeline while we check how it looks together with the video. It is important for me to show you this process because it is an animation process in every project. We never know where to place the keyframes we create in the project. We always move them relative to the whole scene. In the end, after further testing, we can decide that the perfect timing is actually at second number 6. So after timing the entry of the iPhone, I see that now I don't see the leopard's face. Let's see how we can handle this kind of problem. Of course, we will not move the pre-comp of the video in this way, because if we do that, the whole composition will be destroyed. What we need to do is create an animation for the location of the video, and time it together with the iPhone's animation. That is, at this point in time, when the iPhone has not entered yet, it is good for us that the pre-comp of the video is here. So I'll create a keyframe for the position parameter at this point. And when the iPhone is already in, we will move the video about here. And now, we need to create the same behavior of the keyframes as these keyframes, that is, make them easy ease, and set the velocity to 85 by 85. And that's it. We create a match between the two animations. As we see in the final video, the iPhone has a kind of white stroke that enters a little after the entry of the iPhone. Let's see how to do it. So first, let's change the default background from white to black, so we can see what we are doing better. Press Ctrl K, and change the color of the background to black. Great, so now we can see the iPhone a little better. We can close both layers. And now, let's duplicate the shape of the iPhone. Place the new layer below the video. Turn on the layer. Let's isolate this layer so we can see what we're doing, and turn off the background. This layer is currently black. Let's change it to white. And turn on the background back. Now we'll cancel the installation and open the keyframes using the U key. Obviously, all keyframes are the same. That is, both shapes enter the frame at the same time. What we need to do is to late the animation of the white layer. We will move the first keyframe of the white shape here. Now, let's scale the shape of the white iPhone so that we can see the white line around it. Again, I mentioned we will increase the white iPhone through its path. I want it to be this size. Something like that. Let's see how it looks. Now we can adjust the rounded corners relative to the new size of this shape. We can click here on the number and change it gently with up or down arrows. I think 85 was good. You can now close the layer and see what we have so far. Let's zoom out a little in the timeline, get to the beginning of the timeline, and turn on all the layers. Except for the layer named iPhone Screen. The loader, the text, the video, and the iPhone. Looks great. And now, we need to move all these layers aside. So I want to ask you, how can we do it? To those who answered correctly, I am proud of you. To those who didn't guess the answer, don't worry. I promise that if you keep practicing it just a few more times, you'll remember very soon. So let's create a null object. Right-click on the gray area, New, Null Object. We will place it above the layers that we want to move. The null is automatically placed in the center of the frame, which is great for us. And now, we will select all these layers and connect them, not through the pick whip of track mats, but through the parenting of the layers. Now let's create the animation of the movement of the iPhone just as the iPhone finishes its entrance animation. To know where this happens, we will select the layer of the iPhone and press U to see the keyframes, so here it is happening, at this point. And now, we will select the null, press P to open the position parameter, create a keyframe here. Now we can move forward 1 second and open the grid by pressing the apostrophe key. Then move the null here. Nice, I think this position is fine. Let's make the keyframes easy ease, and set the velocity to 85 by 85. Let's see how it looks. Excellent. The last thing left for us to do is to make the text disappear when the iPhone enters the frame. So let's find a point in time when the iPhone is already starting to enter the scene. And now let's go into the pre-comp of the video because this is where the pre-comp of the text is. Let's enter this pre-comp. Now select all the layers and press P to open the position parameter, to see when to remove the text from the frame. If I just move all the layers to the side, then the exit animation will start from that point, meaning as soon as the text enters, it already starts to exit, which is not what we need. For the text to start the exit animation from this point, we need to create a pause and move the text outside the frame only after it. So we need to stand at the point in time where the text should still be where it is now, and create a keyframe of that position. That is, this keyframe is the same as this is like this, and this is like this, so there is no change in the animation. And now, from this point in time, I want the text to start moving out of the frame. So we'll move forward 1 second in the timeline, grab all the layers and take them out of the frame while holding down the Shift key. Let's make sure that the velocity is the same as there is at the beginning. 85 by 85 is excellent. And now, I will create a delay for the all animation. I'll grab the keyframes of the words cat and week, and move them forward a bit in time. Now I'll grab just the keyframes of the word week, and move them even further forward in time. And now, let's go back to the main scene. Turn off the grid, and see that the text is already starting to come out at this point. Let's give After Effects to render the scene. Then we'll recheck the scene. Now you can press Ctrl S to save everything. Great, let's move on to the next step. But before that, let's purge the project. Go to Edit, Purge, All Memory and Disk Cache. Click OK. So after creating the iPhone animation, so-called scene, to keep the project organized, we can put all the layers related to this scene into one pre-comp. Obviously, the loader's pre-comp is not related to the scene, so we'll leave it out. But before that, let's cut the layers that create the scene, at the point where this whole scene begins. So let's place the time indicator at the point in the timeline, when this scene starts, at second 2. Now select the layers that are related to the scene, and press Alt and the left bracket, to cut them. We will do the same for this layer as well. Now we can select all these layers with Shift and press Ctrl-Shift-C to pre-compose. Change the name to Scene 1, because this is the first scene we have in the project. Click OK. A new pre-comp is created, and the project is super organized. If we go into pre-comp, we can see that this pre-comp starts from second 2. This happens because when we put all these layers into pre-comp, they were located at second 2. You can leave it as it is. As you can see, it's not something that interferes with the project, but I want to remind you how you can fix it. Go back to pre-comp scene 1, open the settings of this pre-comp by Ctrl-K. Change the start time code to 0, and press OK. And now this pre-comp starts from second 0. Now let's move with the time indicator to the end of the video while holding the Shift key. That way the time indicator will snap to the end of this layer. Click N, right-click on the work area, and choose Strip Comp to Work Area. Let's close all the pre-comps until we get to the master comp. And let's see what we've done so far. Let After Effects render the scene for a minute. After every change or animation you make, I recommend you check what you have done. Do not continue the project before you do that. This is why after every action, we see what we did. Okay, everything seems fine to me so far, and we can continue. Now let's create a white background. We will do it with solid. Press Ctrl-Y to create a new solid. Open the colors and choose white color. Change the name to BG White, and press OK and move the solid under all the layers. And now, because the iPhone and the background are the same color, we don't see the iPhone. We can fix it with the help of an effect called Drop Shadow, which you may be familiar with from Photoshop and Illustrator. Now let's adjust the parameters of the effect until we reach a result we are happy with. We can leave the direction for now. We can increase the distance to 20 in the meantime. We will change the softness to 300. On second thought, let's change the distance to 0. We will change the color of the shadow to a light blue color. Maybe something like that. Click OK. And here, we have created an interesting look with the help of a very simple effect. At this stage, it's a good time to insert the logo animation we created in the previous lessons. Let's go back to the project panel and find the logo pre-comp. It is in the pre-comps folder. And now, let's drag the pre-comp right into the project. Let's move the entire pre-comp to this point in the timeline, and drop it here, so it's next to the scene's pre-comp. And now, let's check if the logo's timing matches the scene's timing. I think it's great. Now let's center the composition, using the Align tool. We will also click the apostrophe key to open the grid and use it to place the logo in the composition. Let's save the project. Ctrl-S. Now, as you can see in the final video, when the iPhone moves to the side, the loader's 3 points enter the scene from the right side. This is what we will do now. So what we can do is duplicate the loader's pre-comp and reverse the animation. Let's see how to do it correctly. If I enter the pre-comp of the loader, we will see that there is a yellow background in addition to the dots. If I go back to Master Comp and duplicate the pre-comp from here, through the Layer panel, bring it here, Go into Pre-Comp and turn off the background. I'll go back to Pre-Comp and see that the background is indeed turned off. But the problem is that the background turned off for the first Pre-Comp as well, because we duplicated the Pre-Comp through a layer panel. Let's remember how to do it correctly. If we want to duplicate a Pre-Comp and make changes to it, then we need to duplicate the Pre-Comp through the project panel. So we first need to find the Pre-Comp in the project panel, and duplicate the Pre-Comp from here. Let's press Ctrl D to do that. And now, I'll insert the new Pre-Comp into the main composition. Go into it and turn off the background layer. Let's go back to Master Comp and change the direction of this whole layer with right-click, Transform, Flip horizontally. Now the dots enter from the right side. We will continue to schedule the entry of this Pre-Comp until we reach a result we are happy with. Okay, so after we found the perfect timing, I have a little problem. The dots leave the frame too quickly. I need them to stay in the frame for a few more seconds. That is, we need to create a pause in the animation, just like we did with the title animation. And because we duplicated the Pre-Comp correctly, any changes I make here in the animation will not affect the Pre-Comp of the loader, which is at the beginning of the animation. This Pre-Comp can be closed. At this stage, I still don't know how long the pause of this animation should be, but it doesn't matter to us. We will go into Pre-Comp, and as you can see, this layer starts to come out right after this keyframe, which is not what we need. We want this layer to stay at this point for a few more seconds, meaning we need to duplicate this keyframe and paste it somewhere further down the timeline. First of all, let's delete the background because we don't need it here. And because we know we're going to have a pause in the animation, we realize that the entire length of this Pre-Comp should be longer. So let's extend this Pre-Comp. Press Ctrl K to reach the settings of the Pre-Comp, extend the duration to 12 seconds, and press OK. Now let's zoom out in the timeline to see the new length, select all the layers, and extend them to the end of the timeline. And now, let's create the pause. Let's say the pause will be for 3 seconds. We'll move the last keyframes here so they won't disturb us. And now we'll move forward 3 seconds, right after the middle keyframe. Now we'll copy this keyframe and paste it here. Now the two keyframes are completely identical, so there will be no change for all this time. I will do the same for the other layers. The change will start only after the new keyframes. What remains to be done is just to keep the delay of the keyframes in this way. Looking good. Go into the graph editor to check that the keyframes have the same animation. It seems that everything is fine here. And now I can go back to the master comp, and because we extended the pre-comp, we can extend it from here as well. And now, let's place this pre-comp under the video that will fit under it like this. We will deal with the timing of the pause later. Later we can enter the pre-comp again and adjust the animation. And that's the end of the lesson. In the next lesson we'll finish animating the whole video. See you there.